Hi, my name is Virginia Cooper. Welcome back to my channel. I thought I would share with you today my journey to Carmel and how all that happened. It started back in the 90s, the mid-90s, when somehow or another I managed to get a copy of the Liturgy of the Hours. How, I cannot remember. But back then I lived in Bullhead City, Arizona, and I was very, very involved in church. Pro-life chairman, altar society, youth group. I was a lector, commentator, extraordinary minister of the Eucharist. You name it, I was involved. People used to joke around with me and say that I should have gotten a cot and slept there. And then from that point, I had always wanted to move outside of Bullhead City because if you know anything about Bullhead City, Arizona, it competes with Lake Havasu City, Arizona for the hottest spot in the nation every year. I was done over it. So I managed to pick up my little family. My daughter had just graduated from high school and my son and I. And we moved to Prescott, Arizona, and I was in heaven up there. 5,000 foot elevation. It was much cooler, much nicer. It snowed. It was beautiful. What a change of scenery. And then I got, what do you call it? Not enrolled in, but registered at the local parish there at Sacred Heart. And I would go in there very quietly after Mass, reading my Liturgy of the Hours, doing morning prayer. Now, I didn't really ever know how to do the Liturgy of the Hours, but I just muddled through. I think I had a priest. I know Father Peter Dabrowski in Bullhead City helped me along the way. So one day I was sitting there, and by the way, I had left all the works that I'd done in church in Bullhead City, and now I'm very quiet, going to daily Mass, just like I did in Bullhead, but I wasn't involved in anything, nor did I want to be. So from there, I went to adoration. They had a 24-hour adoration chapel, and I signed up for an hour. So the spiritual end of my Catholicism really started to grow. I was able to focus on prayer and quiet time. And one day after Mass, a lady came up, and I'm reading my Liturgy of the Hours, and she tapped me on the shoulder, and she said, "Is that the Liturgy of the Hours that you're reading?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And she said, "Well," she goes, "do you know anything about the Carmelites?" And this was in 1997. And I said, "No." And which was really funny because I need to back up for a minute because I taught CCD at St. Margaret Mary's 5th grade. And the very first day that I taught that class, I was a substitute teacher, and the lady that ran the program needed a substitute teacher, and I was there just to hang out while my kids were in class. And I said, "Well, you might as well put me to work since I'm hanging out here." And she goes, "Well, that's great because we really need someone to fill in today." And I'm going, "Oh, I didn't mean teach. I'd never taught before." And she says, "Oh, it's really easy. They're just talking about St. Therese, the Little Flower." She goes, "It's in the book. You'll know exactly what to do." Well, I just kind of muddled through that. And then fast forward a little bit more, and I'm a nail technician. I owned and operated a salon back then, and I still do today on a much smaller scale. And back then, I used to go to Las Vegas periodically, and there was a Catholic bookstore. And I would always walk in there and ask Jesus to find something for me to buy, or a good book or whatever, because I didn't know. And I remember in the case, there was some St. Teresa sacrifice beads, the Little Flower, and it came with a little card. And I hung it on my lamp when I was doing nails. And a client said, "What is that?" And I told him that St. Therese was instructed to pull, there was 10 beads on there, And throughout the day, she would pull a bead for every little act of sacrifice she did. And so I would do that. And then I thought, it'd probably be really easy to make these. So I got some beads and the cord, and I caught the little prayer cards that went with them. And I started making them. And I made this a regular thing in my class. We would make rosaries, and I taught for probably, 5 years, and loved it. And during those 5 years, the one that I hung on my lamp at the salon, if somebody asked me about it, I would give that to them and I would replace it. And I actually stopped counting how many of those I made when I think I got up to about 300. So you see, the little flower and Carmel had planted seeds in me back probably in 1992, 93, somewhere around there. So let's go back to Prescott, and this lady asked me, did I know anything about the Carmelites? And I said, no, I don't know what the Carmelites are. And she goes, well, have you ever heard of St. Therese the Little Flower? And I went, no. And I think it was just because I was caught off guard. What is this lady quizzing me for? It was making me a little uncomfortable, a little nervous during my prayer time. And she said that they were starting a Lay Carmelite community there in Prescott. Would I be interested in joining them? And I thought, well, yeah, that sounds interesting. So I went. And there was about 13 of us, and I fell in love. We met in the morning for morning prayer, and then immediately following, we went to Mass. And then I would either go to the Adoration Chapel or off to work. Well, I was received in the Carmelite order, I think in 1998, somewhere around there. And as it turned out, I was not able to remain in Prescott, Arizona. The cost of living there was just way too high for me. I wasn't making it in my nail profession. It was a totally different atmosphere and way of life that it just wasn't working out financially for me. I slipped into the call center, customer service end of my career, and I moved to Phoenix. And in Phoenix, I worked for Earthlink for quite a while. Then I went on to Bank of America, and I met and fell in love with my husband there. And I was always searching and longing for that Carmelite family that I was missing so terribly in Prescott. There were a couple of Carmelite communities in the Phoenix area that I went and visited, but it just didn't feel like home to me. So I kind of put that on the back burner. But I believe Carmel was always tugging at my heartstrings. So let's fast forward to, gosh, I don't know, 10 years after Rick and I had gotten married, that we're ready to retire now. And he wanted to retire in Kingman, Arizona. And that's only 40 miles away from Bullhead City. And I'm like, no, I don't want to move back there in that area. My whole family lived here. And he felt comfortable with this area and wanted a smaller town. And I said, okay. So we moved here. In the meantime, I'm still wanting Carmel. I'm still seeking. Carmel is still calling me. And in 2015, I decided to try and start a group myself. Well, in 2015, I had probably, 6, 7 people that were interested, and I was really excited, and we were meeting for meetings. And to start a community, it was very difficult. So I plugged along. Again, I'm back at Bullhead City's church. I go to Mass here in Kingman, but I wanted to do it in Bullhead because I knew Father Peter so well, and I knew he would help me, and he would be a good spiritual guide for all of us. But as things turned out, once again, I got very, very ill, and I could no longer do it. I had something going on with my neck, and it was a really bad infection in the hardware that I had had surgery. and that fizzled out. So that was in 2015. And at that time, I was in close contact with the provincial office in Darren, Illinois. And I was working with a lady by the name of Sister Libby, and she was helping me. She was also telling me the closest Carmelite community was in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is about 100 miles away from where I live. Door to door, probably 110 miles. So at that time, I did not have a vehicle that would make it to Vegas and back every single month. So that was pretty much off the table. In November of that year, my husband and I were coming home from Bullhead, and we got in a really bad accident. And that accident resulted in us getting a newer vehicle. It totaled our car, but none of us, we were not hurt, thank goodness. But we got a better car. And then in February is right about when the thing on my neck got worse. And I had surgery. And here's the really interesting part of the surgery. I was hee-hawing around about, going to Vegas, going to Vegas and not going to Vegas or whatnot, not having a vehicle, and all of a sudden we have a vehicle. So that was taken care of. And after surgery, it was a Sunday, I was walking around the nurse's station, how they have you get up and walk after surgery. And I was doing the glorious mysteries of the Rosary. And this is so remarkable. It's hard to even believe and recall. I love telling this story. I was rounding the nurse's station, and as I was coming around the nurse's station, I had this thought. It wasn't a vision. It was just this image in my head of our Blessed Mother laying with her feet facing me. Her head was on a pillow away from me. And Jesus came up behind, underneath, leaned down and whispered in her ear, "It's time, Mama. It's time to go." And for some reason, I had this huge sense of peace come over me. I can't even explain it. And after I finished the rosary, walked back to my room, I called my husband and I said, "I've made the decision to go to Vegas. I really need to go." And he said, we'll do whatever we have to do to make that happen. I slept so good that night. Well, with bandage and neck, I think it was the following month, I went to Vegas, walked in those doors, and it was held at a Byzantine Catholic church, Our Lady of Wisdom in Las Vegas. And it was a very large community. And I started to go every single month for an entire year. At that point, they did not have a formation class. I had to be very patient and go every month to every community meeting. Once a year had passed by, they started formation class. I enrolled. Now I've got to go to Vegas twice a month. Oh my goodness. So I did that for the entire year. And I was received in 2018 with the large ceremonial scapular. And then from 2018 until 2020, 2021, the pandemic was in there. The next 3 years, I think I've got my dates wrong, but so it's a year in, I think it was 2016 is the year I did my first phase 1, and then I was received in 2017. So 2017 and 18 and 19 and 20, it was 4 years. A 3-year course turned into 4 years because of the pandemic. So it took us, my class, 4 years to make temporary promises. So finally made temporary promises. Now I'm back down to going to Las Vegas once a month, finally. And for the next 3 years, it gives you another 3 years of discernment if this is what you want to do lifelong. So for the next 3 years, we went to, I went to Vegas. So now I've been going, 7 years from 2018 to 2015 to 2020. That was 5 straight years there. I'm getting this so confused. I apologize. But anyhow, it took a long time. It took a total of 7, 8 years to be fully professed, finally fully professed. And then in the meantime, in 2021, I tried to start up another lay group here in my area. And I thought that was really going to take off. I was very excited. We had 11 people, and that fizzled out. So here we are in 2026, and I'm trying it again. So that's my story about how I came to the Carmel and how it tugged on me until I finally came home. And now I'm just climbing that mountain along with all the other Carmelites, getting to the end, enduring to the end, St. Paul says. So that's my story on how I became a lay Carmelite. If you want to continue following my channel and do my fill-in-the-blanks Bible study with me, please like, share, and comment, subscribe, do all the things. I'm just brand new at all this, and I'm really excited to share my journey. So God bless. Have a great rest of the day.